No, too much. Oh, that's good. Or is it? Does it reflect off my glasses too much? Whatever. Let me know, and I'll dim it a little bit. I'm just waiting to pop up here once again on the screen. Batten Down is here. Robert is here. KJB was here. BMXers is or was here. It says 4 people are here, and I have 1 like. So much fun. Thank you so much for being here. This is going to be fun. 35 seconds already? What do you say? Will it be a minute?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think so, but we will see.
What do you want?
What does that mean? Oh, I'm just gonna... Ah, here I am. At 51 seconds.
Ah.
That's okay.
You actually
I am
counted.
live. I can see the counter. It's the Nazarite, bringing your Hebrew lore from days of yore. So it's 9 p.m. and not 10 p.m. because at midday I decided I would be too tired at 10 p.m. At least to begin then. So as I was saying, while I was waiting for the lag to catch up or whatever it's called, KJB is or was here. 3 people are here. James Bong is in the house. Hello. Batten Down, Robert, BMXers, good to see you all. Those who were here and left, and those who are currently here. All right, so let's go with the right here, right now, and then I'll hopefully dive into the chat from yesterday that I didn't finish. Now, KJB had a thought cloud and cherries. Am I supposed to be thinking about cherries? Should we all be thinking about cherries all the time? This is what this stream is about. Okay. Tonight on E, I'm assuming E meaning not ecstasy, but entertainment channel, the entertainment channel. Is that still around? Obviously it's still around. Entertainment is always big. Robert Harrison says, there is a Lakota guy from North America, and I thought about you. Just won the title of world's longest hair on a male, and it's not as long as you thought. It's midway on his shin. Well, I'm inclined to think that in that case, it's in North America and not the world, because there's definitely plenty of people who have hair way past, the feet, just a long, I mean, so it doesn't make sense. Longest hair on a male. Get back to me. Get back to me on that. So I got a call. Maybe you heard it before I muted it. Oh, my father is here. Hello, hello. I got a call from somebody who used to be also in the chat and in the previous channel, who came to Israel. And I'm what is it, my dear? What? It's all good. So he made Aliyah. He came to Israel. We still have not sat down. He's in Tzfat. I'm in Jerusalem, and it hasn't worked out. That's the person who I'm screening right now for your benefit. But just a real talk right now. Doing this stream, and this guy is still ringing. Still ringing. I hope all is okay. It's so much fun to meet with the several people that I've actually sat down to meet with, who I know from the channel. It's so lovely. Every time it happens, it's awesome. So James Bong says, Shalom and God bless from West Kentucky, y'all. So it was West. I was right at the time. Baruch Hashem, he says. He took that title away from a Sikh from India, says Robert Harrison, the dude with the longest hair. Oh, okay, in that case, it's not just North America. It is the world, and I'm mistaken. Likely. But I'm sure that if it's just down to his shin, that certainly there are people who would be way past him, seriously. So I'm not sure. The longest hair on a male. It's a Guinness World Record. It's a different world record. Give me some more deets, because it doesn't make sense. Not that I have anything against the dude from North America. I'm just saying, it seems that just hair down to the shin wouldn't cut it. The shin is, down there. Batten Down, I have 3 or 4 people with much longer hair. Right, so you see what I'm talking about. There are definitely people with much longer hair. Naidi Anagra, or Naidi Anagra. Hi, good to see you, Vibu says, listen, Sidhu Muswala song. Well, I can't listen to it right now, but hopefully I will. Hit me up with a comment when this is over, because I'm going to want to remember. I enjoy new songs, usually. Yodidiao, hello Yodidiao, good to see you. Hey, do you accept Rashi and the Rambam as authoritative? Well, the Rishonim, right, the first ones as they're known, of halachic rulers, they're not the first ones actually, they're called Rishonim as opposed to Achronim, last ones, this current modern era. And the Rambam and Rashi, as in their respective works, they bring down the Masoret, the Masorah, the tradition, the Orthodox rabbinic tradition, and the way halacha is ruled according to those standards. This doesn't apply to every Hebrew man or woman in the sense of there are different sects and different groups, not everybody is Orthodox and so on. But I don't keep strict halacha. And so I accept them as authoritative, and I suppose I go against the sages in some cases, and I go against the authority of the halachic rulers in some cases. Some would say many cases. Latif Hamidi, English or Spanish. I am gay because I moved. Well, the Spanish one. Robert Harrison says the adult male longest hair is vacant. I'm not following you. What do you mean vacant? Vacant as in there's no record because they can't really measure it? BMXer says, batten down. Are you off the radar now? Zombage 420. Hello 420. Grow up, kid. In what sense? In the sense of English or Spanish? You know, again, it's not very harmful to be a kid. You just need to choose your moments. I've found, right, in my experience, and one of the things that we can aspire to greatly, like in a big way as adults, is to rediscover that kid inside of us, the positive one, less the negative one. I know both of mine. ITX Musa FF, hello brother, support me, no. Support me now or support me, no? Which one are we talking about here? It's Musa. It's ITX Musa. Wait, did I miss a couple? Okay, so Robert said, Guinness Book of World Records was what he won. You're right, there is longer, but it seems people with really long hair don't join the Guinness or the Genius. And this guy was a teen. All right, I understand. Guys, please don't. Please. Okay. Zombich said to Latif, you must be a little kid. Why must he be a little kid? Could be. We were all little kids once, right? Correct, no record, I see. So Ben Down said, nah, just change it a few times a year. Off the radar, change it a few times a year. How do you mean? Do you mean online? Do you wander YouTube? What's your MO? Yo, what's up, my G? I'll tell you what is up. Things are good. Things are really good. If I can sit here Sunday night, if I can sit here Sunday night and broadcast and stream with you guys, then it must mean that despite everything that's going on in this country and in my own little world, things are really, really good. And I give thanks and praises that I get to sit here with you at the beginning of a new work week and end the day with real talk, with some Torah, with some, right, hopefully bringing things down to the world. You know what I'm saying? Cut your hair, says Ari. Is it Ari? Yes, it's Ari. Thank you for the suggestion. No, I don't think I will. Bro, you need some haircut. You look like a tree. Hey, you know what? You're not that far from the truth, because I seek to be a kind of little tree. Yotidiao says, Rambam has the 13 principles to be a Jew. How do you feel about those? I've been asked about those before. I don't consider those to be authoritative, but he did take them from different places in the oral traditions and the Torah. So how do I feel about them? I don't think there's anything wrong with them. I think they sum up principles of faith, but like I've mentioned in the past, there is an argument, a difference of opinion, a machloket over whether or not having faith is indeed one of the 613 commandments, with some who enumerate the commandments, the 613 mitzvahs. Some of them do count having faith, belief, and some do not. And they say, no, you can do, and I mentioned this not long ago in the same context, that you can do everything technically, but still not believe it. But you can actually physically carry it out with your body, with your mind, with your being. And in doing so, you actually do forge those connections according to those who go with that school of thought, and belief is not necessary. Obviously, it's a good thing in 13 Principles of Faith, Yud Gimel Ikarei Emunah of the Rambam, of Maimonides. They carry a lot of weight. They carry a lot of weight, on many levels. And so I'm not the type who would say it's halacha and you must recite them every day, and people do after the morning shachrit, after the morning prayer. They're recited. Not everyone, but basically. So I would say they are lovely suggestions, and one or two or three, that don't get too literal right now because I don't remember them all offhand. I can sing the hymn Yigdal Elohim Chai V'Yishtabach and remember it, but I won't waste your time with that. So I'll say that a few there are not a necessity, and a few there are a necessity, to put a rough term on it. That's what I would think. BMXer says, no, that's a quote from South African television channel that used to or still airs. But yes, it sounds like ecstasy. Oh, okay, so it's a different kind of E. Tonight on E. I'll tell you this much. If I was on E, I wouldn't be broadcasting. At least it depends on how much E. My MO is playing with ideas. Lovely. Now, do you find that you play with ideas for the intellectual pursuit, or do you find that you play with ideas more for the practical implementation of such ideas and their derivatives in behavior, like in your life, in your self? New gen, Robert. Robert says, new gen, dude, I'm 42 years old and married. You're probably still in your mom's basement. Sorry, HN, had to say it. Okay, I hear you. Zombitch says, Robert, if you don't know where the quote Zombitch is from, then you are younger than I thought. Well, my apologies, and I'm very ignorant, so do share with the group, if you will, what is the origin of Zombitch? So, or did you quote something before? Okay. So he says, no, I just find this new gen's way of talking hella childish. Well, I think every generation says that about the next generation, or the generation after the second one down the line, right? Me with Gen Alpha, for instance. Or is it Gen Z and Gen Alpha? Who knows? But I don't know what Zombitch is from, so please enlighten me. I'd love to know. BMXer says, the longest hair is a Jamaican woman. Well, we sent male, but okay. The longest hair is a Jamaican woman whose hair is like 2 stories long. Coincidentally, she's married to a Rasta from South Africa. Well, a Rasta I would think certainly appreciate the long hair. Zombitch says, Robert, you say you are 42, yet your insults are hella immature. Well, I don't know, man. You could be 42 and be very immature. Watch this. There you go. I think that's all I need to do. Robert says, dude, I'm not on here to insult. I'm here to talk to my friend and achi, brother. HN, go play some video games, youngin. Oh, come on now, people. We don't need to have a... Zombitch 420 says, besides, I'm 21, I own a house, and I'm soon to be married. Good for you. May it be a blessed union. So clearly I'm doing something better than you. I don't know you guys personally. I haven't met you physically, but it seems to me that, come on, we can do better than this. You're both grown. Or by all means, keep slinging it at each other if you want. Ideas, both. Okay, so you want to do both. Can you share something from the previous? I mean, you're here right now on this live stream, and you've been here for some days, and you hop around, and that's cool. Do you have anything to bring from your previous journey on whatever it is you were watching regularly, semi-regularly, or currently also watching regularly, semi-regularly? Any nuggets of wisdom, any pieces of information that I might find interesting? Yodidiaus says, guys, come on now. Rashi's commentary says Mashiach should arrive around the destruction of the second temple. Do you think Daniel was a false prophet? Well, I haven't studied enough Rashi to prophesy that, but I do also know to prophesy. I don't know enough Rashi to know that particular commentary. The commentary that I do know, which has to do with it directly and indirectly, is that Mashiach Rashi in the Talmud claims regarding the temple if I'm not mistaken, it's Rashi. I don't think it's Tosfot. I think it's Rashi, who says that the temple will descend from the heavens, already built. This has been a very major thing. It took hold, and whether or not he came up with it is, he brought it down. Whether it was his original idea, likely not, based on different teachings, but I know the more famous, the temple is supposed to descend from heaven completely built, is associated many times to Rashi, if not completely attributed to him, associated with him, and with that Talmudic commentary. And that's something which I think can or cannot happen. It may or may not happen. It could come down from the heavens for all I know, or we could build it brick by brick. And I've mentioned the Rabbi Nazarite Yoshua Friedman of the Temple Institute, who says that it's Nazarite priests who will be starting the process, because they will be able to be free and pure of the defilement of a corpse, right, of the dead body, and they will be able to be pure in a priestly sense as a result of that, or as a, let's say, down the chain from that, and they will be the ones who will usher in that physical process of, should it occur, when it occurs, depending how you look at it, of working on the temple. But I've mentioned many times that I think the third temple, it can or cannot be. We can, once again, be that temple ourselves, be that image of God ourselves, and not necessarily need the building and the precious stones, the metals, the incense, the water, the fire, the oil, the wine. We won't necessarily need it. We were the image of God before the temple, before the tabernacle, and we are still the image of God now. And in that sense, so that's a Rashi that I don't exactly, it's not a question of agreement, it's a question of, it may not happen. I can totally see how that may not happen. In the same vein, if we're talking about the temple and his commentary that says Mashiach will arrive, then we need to take it in context, that even if he did say it, it was Ruach HaKodesh, the spirit of sacredness, or Holy Spirit, sacred spirit, the lower form of prophecy, is one where there are more ancient, let's say, things to go on that, if not contradict it, right, they don't necessarily align with it. But I don't deny that it could actually happen if we get our act together. Descend from the heaven, for sure. I still think it will be vegan, if not first, then eventually. But that's my take on Rashi and commentary regarding the temple or Mashiach. Do I believe Daniel was a false prophet? No, I don't. I believe Daniel was a very special prophet because he prophesied on foreign soil. And, well, that's mainly why. That's huge. Keep dreaming, bro. No one believes you, says Robert. Anyway, says Zombitch, I'm gonna go smoke a blunt and get ready for work. And the quote Zombitch is from COD Black Ops 1 Zombies. Okay, see, my connection to Call of Duty is that I was working at Toys R Us when Black Ops 1 came out, and I remember thinking, man, if I was a younger dude, I would totally be into this game. It seems like fun. James Bong asks, oh, I didn't do the Q&A before I got here. I didn't do the Q&A feature. I only did it twice. It's not in my habit to do it. Those of you who may arrive before I actually go live, and there were a few of you here today, and that was lovely to see when I wanted to go live. A few people were waiting. I feel so blessed, so honored, so privileged. You could be doing anything right now, but you're here with me. And hopefully I'm providing some kind of value here, and we're having a good discussion. So Black Ops and Toys R Us, and I didn't do the Q&A. So people in the chat next time before I go live, if you remember, remind me, hey, do the Q&A feature. Do you believe, asks James Bong, there are aliens somewhere out in the universe, Hebrew Nazarite? Well, let's put it this way. Life comes in many shapes and forms. We are bounded by certain restrictions, right? The physical laws of nature. But I also believe that mankind, being that image of God, is meant to control all of creation, spiritual and physical alike. And do I believe there are aliens? It makes a lot of sense that other life evolved elsewhere, considering how long it's been, billions of years. Now, for instance, there's the opinion of the last Rebbe of Chabad, right, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Reb Schneerson, who had the hypothesis. He was a scientist. His master's, I think, was in engineering or physics or some. He's a thinker, to be sure. And he says that the universe could have been created or was created ancient already, meaning it's the opinion that yes, it was nearly 6,000 years ago, says the Rebbe, but it was created old. And that's something that I could totally go with. I don't, it's not for me to say if he's right or wrong. It's it's lovely to think that. It's an interesting way to think about it. I believe in the Big Bang and evolution as the at least contenders for the crown of where we came from and where we're going. Yedidiahu says, do you think the angel of Adonai has the ability to bless and forgive? I think that yes, because not that angels don't have their own will. Angels, according to tradition, carry out one specific task at a time. They may have like a meta category to which, and sphira, and emanation to which they hold, right? Like the Argaman, with the five archangels. They each hold to a certain sphira. And in that way, their task pivots in accordance with the right and the left and the center. And right, because they're part of those lower seven sphirot, that's where they hold. So, I believe that the angel of God has no ability. I believe they are a vessel through which God reveals himself, like everything in creation. So whatever ability they have, if they bless and forgive, it's in the name of. When Samson's parents want to make a sacrifice when the angel appears before them and they still don't fully believe it's an angel, and they say, stop, we'll have an offering in your honor, something along those lines. Stop, we'll slaughter an animal and break bread and have a meal. And he says, I will stop, but I will not eat. And if you make an offering, make it to God. In that sense, that's the messenger. A messenger. But not the origin of blessing, not the origin of forgiveness. The angels may be blessed and forgiveness in the way that an angel can be wrathful and merciful. It has to do with the sfirot, with the divine revelations, and where they are, which hall they come from, which heichal. Where do they hold in the tree of life? And in that sense, they reveal God's presence in the world as the sfirot and their relationships manifest and change, and it's a very dynamic thing. Zombich says, Robert, don't believe me then. Okay. Oh, I believe you, man. I believe you. Smoke that blunt, get ready for work. I hope you do something where a blunt will not impair you. I hope that you're able to do it. I have never enjoyed doing that at work. But that's me. That's on you, says Zombich. You want me to prove it? How about you drop your Insta and I'll vid call you? Come on. This aggression will not stand. No road leads to the way, says Batten Down. No road leads to the way. Well, I'll tell you this. In the Hebrew faith, right, we have netivot and we have she'arim, we have gates and we have paths and we have ways and we have pillars. Again, this has to do with the tree of life. For instance, they speak of the 32 paths of wisdom or knowledge, chokhmah, 32. And they speak of the 50 gates of Bina. And then the 620 pillars of Keter. And those are all different facets of the way. The tree of life from crown to kingdom runs straight and true. And the roads there lead to the way, in my case, as I see it, because when you make an effort to emulate those attributes, and there are ways of doing that, practical ways of doing that, like the Ramak says in Tomer Dvorah, that leads you to the way. Now, I don't know if you meant that to be like that, where a road versus a way, but I do believe that roads can lead to the way, personally. Robert says, don't you're showing your age and maturity by attacking me from nowhere on here. I think point blank says all I need to know about you. Keep talking if you'd like, but I'm talking to the men on here. Okay. BMXer says, all in all, you see Agwan is to fight against Yaman. So they build their world on great confusion to force on us the devil's illusion. But the stone the builders refuse shall be the, well, head cornerstone. So you've been quoting this song more recently, BMXers. Are you feeling it more in the recent days? Are you always feeling it? Well, people, there are 9 people here in the chat. Tell me, is there a specific song or melody or lick or tune that is in your brain today that you've been humming or whistling, that you woke up with, that you're likely to go to bed with? You know, for instance, for me, last night, it was Noga Erez's new single, Ay Ay Ay. I've been saying that, Ay Ay Ay, several times a day. Yesterday, anyway. Less today. Hello. 420 is yawning, Ve'asuri mikdash v'shachanti betocham. They shall make me a temple and I will dwell among them, or within them, or in them. Yes, precisely, Odidio. Precisely. The temple is a means to an end, not an end in and of itself, a means to an end, a means to bring about the union of the male and physical divine presence. And in doing that, through the temple, that's a lovely way to do it, and we can also be the temple ourselves. So a good verse to bring up. Zombich says, anyway, I'm going to leave a sub and hop off. I'll tune in when this kid grew up. Thank you, I appreciate that. Sub if you want to, no pressure, obviously. I appreciate it. Hop off, do your thing. I hope you have a wonderful day. Enjoy your work. Sometimes it's nigh impossible to enjoy one's work, especially if it's a job, especially if it's a pain in the ass job, especially if it's a job where on your way in the commute, you're like, why? Why am I still going to this place? But still, may you find a meaning and a blessing in that work. Or, hey, you know what? If you have a career at 21, you own a house, I don't know who I'm talking to, go, kill it, get it. Either way, do that. Do it the best you can. Or stay and learn to, and just learn to ignore, says James Bong. Well, no, if he needs to get to work, he needs to get to work. So go, off you go, shoo, shoo, shoo. BMXer says, head cornerstone, and no matter what game they play, we got something they can never take away. That is correct. All right, I'm going to just block Robert so I don't see his messages, said 420. Well, don't do that. Part of what I love to do on here is when people get negative, that they may try and find some common ground. And I mean that with myself. Or common ground, or make the situation so transparent and ridiculous. Hey, we're 2 people who have never known each other ever before, but we're already totally comfortable with slinging insults at each other online with zeros and ones and pixels. No judgment, I'm just saying that's literally the case. James Mong says, I don't want to grow up because if I did, I couldn't be a Toys R Us kid. LOL. Oh man, you know, when I quit Toys R Us, my Facebook status at the time read, Toys are them. Dude's obsessed with me, says Robert. Hey, you know what? We are human beings, and many times we're just drawn to the muck and the mud and the negativity. Again, no judgment. It's just a simple case, right? Like I like to quote the advice to the young there. Right, everybody's free to wear sunscreen. That's what it became in the late 90s, I think, right? But it was originally in the, the Seattle Gazette, or one of the, like a local or regional, I don't know if it was a national newspaper in the States. But, remember love letters you received. Forget the insults. If you manage to do this, tell me how. Have a good week and enjoy the stream. Gotta head to work. Go, man, go. Head to work. Be well. Be well. It's better to know than to believe. It's better to know than to believe. Well, look, you know what? There's the rabbinic phrase, Chacham adif min navi. A wise man is better than a prophet. Or Chacham, or maybe, well, no, Chacham is, let's say, wise, knowledgeable. Chacham adif min navi. The wise man is preferable to the prophet. This is sort of what we are left with. Now, you could say it's them sort of hyping up the wise men and the sages, right? The sage is better than the prophet. You could say it was the rabbis, our sages, who hyped themselves up, seeing that the spirit of prophecy was traditionally taken away of the people of Israel at the destruction of the temple. It's definitely making a comeback, as I'm saying, as I like to say, but it was definitely taken away according to the rabbinic tradition and given to children and fools. And so Chacham adif minavi. A sage is better than a prophet. The prophet, for instance, has the ability, the allowance to break commandments if the time is needed. The more famous case of this is Eliyahu at Mount Carmel. As you people know, there was a temple standing at the time, and you are only allowed to make sacrifices at the temple. You may slaughter animals for meat at your gates of all your cities and dwellings, but to make a sacrifice to Adonai, you might only use the tabernacle, the temple, and that altar, the Mizbach Nechoshet, the copper altar. And Eliyahu broke this when he had the confrontation with the 400 prophets of the Baal. And he made an altar, a bama, a mizbeach. Well, actually, he renewed, rejuvenated, healed, fixed a broken altar of God. That's an important distinction. He didn't build one from scratch. I mean, he could have very well built one from scratch. The terminology there of to fix and to heal the altar. And he did it in Mount Carmel, and the fire came down, and all of the people said, Adonai hu Elohim, right? Adonai is God. And he said, grab those prophets of the Baal and slaughter them all. And Izeved went after his ass. So Chacham adif minavi. Chacham adif minavi. A sage is preferable to a prophet. Because a prophet is this idea of spirit. It may have times when it comes or it doesn't come. It may have times when music is needed. It may have time when dancing is needed. It may have time when certain breaths and meditations are needed. It may be different ways to achieve prophecy. There are many of them. They're laid out in the Bible, laid out in the oral traditions. And to be wisdom and knowledge and being a sage, on the other hand, is something that is not a spirit that comes on you. It is something you acquired through study, through repetition, through practical implementation, because that brings wisdom. And yes, there's a difference between Chokhmah and Binah in that context, I understand, but Chacham adif min Navi. This idea of Chokhmah being the more primordial, the earlier, the more ancient of that spirit of prophecy. Chacham adif min Navi. That's why if BMXer says it's better to know than to believe, I'm inclined to agree, because then you make a connection that while it's maybe more intellectual and down to earth, prophecy and the spirit of prophecy, first of all, prophecies themselves can definitely be down to earth, and many times they were. They always are, actually, because they are being spoken to people who are on the earth. But I digress. The spirit of prophecy, like I said, it's something that can come on you or not come upon you. There are times when it goes away for a very long time, and we see this, for instance, with Saul coming to and raising Shmuel. And he says, why did you raise me? And he says, look, God's not answering me, not with the precious stones, right, the breastplate, and not with dreams, and not with prophets. I don't know what to do. And the Philistines are all around me. Speaking of breaking commandments. So it's better to know than to believe, because then you have something that, it's not that it may come or may not, it's something that you have acquired. And that connection is different than the one of spirit of prophecy. Chacham adif min Navi. Okay, let's continue. המלאך הגואל אותי מכל רע יברך את הנערים ויקרא בהם שמי ושם אבותיי אברהם ויצחק וידגו לרוב בקרב הארץ. Yes, that's what Yaakov, that's the blessing Yaakov gives Yosef's sons, Menashe and Ephraim. The angel who delivers me from all evil will bless the lads, the boys, and will be called in them my name, and the name of my fathers Avraham and Yitzchak, and they will be plentiful like fish among the land. The blessing, he turns to the angel. He turns to that messenger, right? But the messenger, again, is conveying a blessing that came from the Most High God. It's not something that the angel decides to do of its own accord. It has no free will according to rabbinic tradition, which is also where we are higher than angels in potential. Because while they are the keepers of all the keys and the gates and the halls, and they bring things down to here, there is something about mankind being that image of God which outranks them to some degree. And it's said that when Adam was created, when Adam was created, he shone so brightly that the angels of God did not know if the sun is the sun or Adam Arishon, or Adam. And they don't have they don't go the same path that we human beings are. We go through a very unique path as far as creation goes. And consciousness and free will are a blessing and a curse. And so Yaakov turns to the angel, to the redeeming angel, and he says, bless, he will bless. Hey Jen, I have a question about prophecies on foreign soil. So all prophecies outside of Israel are less. All prophecies outside of Israel, I'm hesitant to say absolutely yes, because I don't speak in absolutes. And we see that the very idea that prophecy will be given to Israelites on foreign soil is already something which is, at least ever since Moses and the tabernacle and the temple, we see that that there's a great distinction. There's a holiness, right? A set apartness, a sacredness that belongs to the land of Israel, right? And within that Jerusalem, and within that the temple, and within that the holy, and within that the holiest of holies, and so on. It ripples in, it ripples out, it fractals in and out. It's what you set apart. And that's in the Mishnah, right? Eretz Yisrael mikudeshet mikol ha'aratzot. The land of Israel is sacred than all the lands. Well, obviously it's sacred to the people of Israel because it's the land of Israel. And so we set it apart in that way, in a very clear way. So obviously it's sacred to us. Other nations are sacred to other peoples, and there's nothing wrong with that. So to say that they are less, it certainly is coming from a different place. Because, speaking of Chacham Adif Min Navi, our sages say, Avira de Eretz Yisrael machkim, the air of the land of Israel makes you a sage, right? It smartens you up. Machkim. There's something about prophecy in Israel that channels a different energy. And as such, it's not necessarily a question of less, but very, very different in where the prophets are gleaning it, right, the spirit of prophecy from. By and large, it's Netzach Vahod, the two thighs, the two friends who do not part. Netzach Vahod, the 8th and 9th Sphira in the Tree of Life, they are brothers. They are two friends who do not part. And it's said that the prophets take it from them down to Malchut, where they can manifest it in the same way that the testes produce the sperm, but it comes out of one place. But the idea of the spirit of prophecy that is manifested in Netzach Vahod has a higher origin. And the land, the soil of Eretz Yisrael, machkim, in the sense of there's something very ancient about the land. And if you can connect to that ancient and more root place, physically and spiritually, with Torah and commandments and in righteousness, then the prophecy will change accordingly. In the same way that, let's say, going again with the sperm analogy, what you take into your body, it has to do with its consistency, it has to do with its color, it has to do with its flavor, things that you took into your body. And then it arrives in the testes, and then it comes out of that one place. And so this may be crude, but I think pretty much you get it. So I used it. So it's not less, but it's different because it's coming from a different place. You all still live with your mom, says BMXers. Well, my mom is right here. BMXer says, I've got the facts, look at the stats, look at my charts. Is that? That's Ben Shapiro and, not McDonald, what's his name? Is it McDonald? I don't remember. R.I.P. Dr. Dreidel. Dr. Dreidel? BMXers, what do you mean? Robert says, the Torah was given on foreign soil. Yes, which is why I said ever since Moses. Mount Sinai was in Saudi Arabia, Moses wrote, right, again, so maybe, I'm assuming you wrote this before, but that's why I said exactly what I said. When Moses brought the Torah down, and he's the father of all prophets, there was a fundamental shift there. Let's continue. So, just saying Abraham foreign soil, no hate, just saying, no, you're absolutely right, you're exactly right. But there was a shift after Moses, because he was father of the prophets. PMX says, okay, the longest hair on a male, I think, is or was in India on a sadhu, or in Asia somewhere. All right, that's cool. Batten down. No literal roads made by man leads to the way. So, I figured you might mean that, and that is also what I was thinking. Because literal roads made by man leads to the way, I would argue in certain cases is not the case. I'll give you an example from my life. Many, many moons and years ago, I was in my teens, and the lady who later became my wife called me very late at night, and she said, I need you to come over here. She was going through some emotional stuff. I said, okay, I'm on my way, hung up the phone, went out. Parents were like, hey, where are you going? Don't worry, I'll be back. I had to go there. She needed me, and I had to go there and be with her. And on my way there, it was a 20-25 minute bus ride. And on my way there, I prayed because she didn't sound well on the phone, and I didn't have a cell phone. I think she did, I didn't. I couldn't call her, I couldn't stay with her, I couldn't text her on the way, hey, what's up, talk to me on the way. There was a disconnect of communication. I'm sure we were in each other's minds and hearts. And I had a prayer. Not a prayer, right? My spontaneous prayer, hitbodedut. And I was thinking to myself, I'm going now to try to do the right thing by her, by us. And may it be your will, right? Maybe we're able to manifest your will and everything will be okay and everything will be awesome. I'm paraphrasing, but I just wanted her to be okay. And that's a literal road because I was listening to the hum of the bus, because I was silent at times. And I was listening to the bus stop and start, and, at bus stops, I mean, and the windows on the bus, they open and shut, open and shut, open and shut. And I thought to myself, this is a road, and it's physical, and it's man-made, and it was paved, and it's been trodden over by God knows how many, ridden over, rather, by God knows how many tires. And it's leading me now to some place where I hope I will be able to manifest real spiritual and mental and physical change. That is my way right now. That is what I'm doing right now. And in that sense, a literal road made by a man did indeed lead me to the way and on the way. And you could argue that it's not the way to God, but for me, that was one and the same, because my hitbodedut, my spontaneous prayer, has always and ever been a way of me to connect with God on a level that only I can, because I'm only me. There's only me. I am only me. For better or worse. In Nam, at some points, as BMXers, it's difficult to say, as Robert said. In Nam, Dr. Dreidel, am I missing something? They don't all go on Genius. Okay, I see. Oh, all right, at Nam at some point with the long hair. Understood, sorry, it came back to me. Okay, BMXer's new one is Lakota man looks twice. That's his name. Lakota as a Lakota as a Native American? Yeah, it sounded like a Native American tribe. Soaring Eagle. So yeah, Soaring Eagle probably still has the dreadlocksite.com, or is it dreadlocksite.com? when I was first getting interested in the idea of natural dreads and what it would mean to grow dreadlocks, I found that site, right? Soaring Eagle and site, the Dreadlocks site, something like that. I was on the forum there for a month and a half or so, getting information, trying things out with my hair. That was a long time ago. Also have very long locks. Yeah, Soaring Eagle has really long locks. The guy who once says he will never cut his hair and gets it caught in doorknobs. Yeah, I can imagine it gets caught on doorknobs. Bloodnose, hello! Good to see you. Hello to HN and all the good followers. I'm not hanging, but just wishing you a nice start to your week. I'm avoiding the mud and muck, and we'll see you next time. Okay, good call. Go with that. You have other things to do? Go for it. I commend you for doing that. Don't procrastinate here. Doorknobs, that's not very long. Or it just gets caught somehow, says BMXers. I'll send you his link. You can see for yourself. Robert, how will you send me a link? I'm sure he'll be able to do it. You just break it up in a comment and you send it. ויאמר אלוהים אל יעקב קום עלה בית אל ושב שם ועשה שם מזבח לאל הנראה אליך בברכך מפני עשיו אחיך. Why is this verse in third person? Or are there two Elohim and El Bet El, God and God of house of God? So, listen. A, there's no nikud, so it's more difficult to discern. B, there's no te'amim, the melody, the trup, which is it makes it also more difficult to discern. But kum ale bet el, does that mean that there are two Elohim and El Bet El? Well, Beit El is a nickname for the Shekhinah, if I'm not mistaken. All of these names are divine revelations. That's all it is. So I'm trying to figure out where is there a contradiction here. As far as I'm concerned, the name of God is a revelation of God, a specific one, right? In a specific place in the tree of life, a specific relationship. And which is why I also mentioned the melody and the nikud, because they also matter. But basically, any name is a revelation of God. So I don't think that it's right. Elohim traditionally is Binah or Gvura or Malchut. El is traditionally the right hand, Chesed. And so those are all names of God. So I'm thinking it's still a different revelation. I'm probably missing something, so let me know, because it seems pretty simple to me. Batten Down says, BMX, this morning I was weeding my garden, my hair fell on the ground and I thought it was a snake. It happened twice. Wow. I hope, BMXers asks, by the way, how was y'all's Shabbat weekend? And mine was very blessed, very good. I had a good time. Did I manage to rest again? I think I slept an hour, maybe even more in the afternoon. That's always a great blessing. Really it is, to have a nap on Shabbat. Ugh. In Judaism, says Robert, you're not supposed to contact the dead. And Samuel was dead. That was a demon pretending to be Samuel, summoned by a witch. I agree that it was summoned by a witch, but I also say that the person who wrote it would know his shtick. And I do believe that it was an apparition of Samuel. However, you can make the case that an apparition that comes from the left side, the klipot, from the side of impurity, of uncleanliness, sitra achra, the other side as it's known, something that's not kosher, that's not Hebrew, right? We have different ways of divining, if you will, and this is not one of them. And being as he contacted the dead, I don't think it was a demon pretending to be Samuel. But I think that if it was actually an apparition, a vision, a revelation of Samuel, that it was affected by its origin. So what manifested at the end to her, in her mind's eye, right, to the Ba'alat Ov, what manifested to her in her mind, it comes from a place that is above the mind, right, that is without mind. The place where inspiration, let's say, comes from, if you will, that unknowable, unfathomable place. And that place is, it's not a proper origin. So you could say it was a demon, because that is the the klipot, olam ha-klipot, right? The place of the klipot is a place where demons would be. Now, I mean, I differentiate demons from angels, and because there are also. Never mind. Let's not go there. So it could very well be that you're correct, but I think you're sort of half right, I suppose. There was certainly a demonic influence. Or Shmuel was so righteous, and it had no, and he was able, in his non-physical form, right, as a soul, let's say, to appear to this Baalat Ov, to this witch, as he was. Maybe. You have Locks 2 radar? The blessing is singular or plural? It's singular. If it was plural, it would be Hamalachim hagoalim oti yevarechu. Not Hamalach hagoel oti. That's plural. 10 years worth, says Batten Down. It's always with me no matter what they do, dreaded people coming through. Yes, they are. Oh, wait, did I just miss where? Oh, I missed the. Oh, there I am. The chat went up and down again. Interesting. So, old young man with locks. Rather rare, even in the US, he says. Robert says, I was just asking that because you said the prophet Daniel's prophecies didn't mean as much because he wasn't in Israel. It's not that they didn't mean as much. It's that Daniel was placed in the writings and not in the prophets. In other words, traditionally, rabbinically speaking, the origin of his prophecy was Ruach HaKodesh and not Ruach Nevu'ah, in the sense of it was writings that Daniel exists in writings and not in the books of prophets. So there is, now I'm remembering now that Daniel possibly was mentioned by name in the prophets. I don't remember which prophet, in the books of prophets, by name. However, his prophecies were on foreign soil, and when our sages wanted to canonize this collection of prophecies, of stories, of scrolls, they left some stuff out, and they left some stuff in, and Daniel was put with the writings. So, going on that, I'm going to say that it wasn't less important, but it was different in its origin. So I attribute difference to it from mainstream prophecy. That's not to say that he wasn't an awesome prophet who saw awesome things, and his knowledge of dreams and his faith and his, with the lion's den and all that. The dude was, without a doubt, from infancy, supposed to be a holy man of God, a prophet, somebody who conveys the will of God to the people, who's able to carry that burden. So, if I may have misspoken yesterday, not to denigrate Daniel, and I think I said no judgment, I'm not denigrating him, maybe not in different words, but I said such things. I wouldn't dare to say anything against somebody who was able to receive prophecy on foreign soil. That's a great feat, and I don't think that's nothing to sneeze at. Speaking of sneezer, I mean, we're not, because he's not here, but he's here anyway. If I didn't cut mine after 4 years, it would have been 12 years now. Voila. Batten Down says, rare? Yeah, I'm kind of strange, LOL. Well, join the club. Sabadeep Das. Please translate from Hindi, I'm assuming. I think Das means God. I know from Ram Das is servant of God, but so I think Das... No, I'm sorry, Ram is God, Das is servant. Sabhadeep, what does Sabhadeep mean? Please tell me. What are your thoughts about fate? And if you believe in it, how can you be sure your life is not repeating itself? Well, I believe in the cyclic nature and in the straight line nature of creation, which means that I believe that there's fate that runs from top to bottom, right, throughout our existence, in spirit and in physical. There's something about us that runs straight and true. And I also believe that we can change things. And in that sense, it's more like a circle, with no corners, with no beginning or end. And we are able, right, if we're talking about your life repeating yourself, we're able to make tiny, tiny changes that over time shift and become greater changes. And my thoughts on fate, something let's say like dharma, is that we each have our own task to fulfill. Some of us have multiple tasks to fulfill. Some of us are probably on our first, and some of us have been doing this for many times. I'm inclined to believe in reincarnation as much as I'm inclined to not. It doesn't matter to me either way. I'm more of a person in the here and now. So it makes less of a difference to me. However, I can't be sure of anything. So if you seek surety, I am not your man. I believe life is repeating itself in the way that it's cyclic, and I believe that I'm always advancing in the sense that it's from top to bottom, right? From one point from A to B. That's how. I hope that maybe kind of answers it a little bit. I might be not phrasing it properly, but that's my association. What are your thoughts, Mr. Das? What are your thoughts on fate? Do you believe in it? And if you do, how can you be sure your life is not repeating itself? Or is that your assumption? Oh wow, so much chat. Much with the chats. Hopefully I'll be able to get through a lot of these. I don't know. I've been on for almost an hour. Cool. So wait, now I need to go back to where I was. So much fun to be with you guys here. Almost an hour. I give thanks to the Most High. Is a kif. What fun. What look. By the way, do you think God is toying with us? Says BMXers. Again, I don't know God, so I can't say if God is toying with us. Facts don't care about your feelings. Do you put your feelings over the Chachamim and prophets? Feelings, and also the pillars, right? The wagons to which I hitch these feelings have their origin in very ancient teachings, which is why, and by the way, they have their origins in the way that I grew up. Modern Orthodox in Jerusalem, right? We were taught certain virtues, we were taught certain attributes, things to aspire to, ideals, and I watched the religious world and myself go through this, that, and the other. I came to the very difficult, I will add, conclusion that the path of strict halakha is no longer my path. And I did that consciously, knowingly, despite the risk, despite the danger. And there's a ton of risk and a ton of danger, but I couldn't turn away from what I was doing and feeling. And it didn't seem to align with some of the things in halakha. It didn't seem to align with what those who keep strict halakha manifest in their behavior. If only from my personal experience, I had 25 years worth of it or so, ish, before I decided to not keep as strict halakha and to be a picker and chooser, to have cafeteria faith, cafeteria Torah. I pick and choose everything and make no apologies. And I do that because I believe that the origin of where I would get to this place from, it's not a question of superseding. It's simply that the path of halakha led me to that. Halakha means to guide, to walk, lehulich, to walk, lalechet, to return to Adonai, to return to Torah and commandments. Halakha is there to keep us on the path. So people might say I'm off the derech, off the path, but I say I am off their derech, I'm off their path, because I liken it to the roots in the ground, right? But a single trunk, or the leaves and the flowers and the fruit, but they all, right, come together to the root. It's not my tradition to do such things, but I felt it necessary, and I'm sure I'm paying a price, and I might pay in the future for my actions, for my behaviors, for better or worse, but I simply couldn't ignore the call that I was, the call. that something is amiss. And as you know, I've mentioned this many times, I thought for years, certainly at least a year or two, on whether or not I'm doing the right thing, on whether or not I'm simply seemingly adapting a different path, but just to shed the yoke of Torah, the responsibility, the burden of halacha. Things that were going on in my life, things that were going on in Israel. And my feelings are not over the Chachamim and the prophets, but my personal journey is by definition not theirs. And while I still draw a lot of inspiration and authority and sort of physical, practical behavior, customs and traditions from the sages and from the prophets, I say it every time. Modern Orthodoxy will always be my home. So I don't put those over the Chachamim and the prophets. Though some might see my behavior and my chosen path and say that I am. And to them I say, okay, tell you what, you don't have to do the same thing then. By all means, you do you. Right, also, you got to remember, I'm not a scholar, I'm not an educated man, I'm not a learned man, and I'm an Am Haaretz, right? I'm a people of the earth, a person of the earth. Robert, you are, and plus many people from Orthodox Judaism say Prophet Daniel prophecy are valid. Yes, definitely valid. They're definitely prophecy. That's why they were canonized. That's why they were kept in the Bible. Because there are things that we need to bring down here to the earth. And the Bible is part of the way to do that. And learning the different prophecies and learning about the different prophets and what they went through, it informs us here and now. That's why they were kept. That's why the sages left certain things out but kept certain things in. BMXer says, if Chokhmah is wisdom, what is knowledge in Hebrew? Something to do with Yodea. So there's Chokhmah Bina Vada'at. That's the acronym of Chabad. Chokhmah Bina Vada'at. We have a tradition, right? We have 10 Sfirot and not 9. We have 10 Sfirot and not 11. Da'at is the higher form of a lower emanation called Tiferet, the male divine revelation, let's say. So Chokhmah can be knowledge, and then Bina is wisdom. But if Chokhmah is wisdom, then Bina is understanding, because understanding is knowing, right, is making that connection. But knowing, Yodea, is Da'at, where the connection between Chokhmah and Bina is made manifest, that leads down to Malchut. From Da'at, it's said that the reason why Moses is the father of prophets, even though he wasn't the first prophet, is because Moses' prophecy comes from Da'at, the higher form of Tiferet, and all other prophets take theirs from what's lower, Netzach Vahod, the lower form of Tiferet. So it is something to do with Yodea, but Bina is either wisdom or understanding. That's usually the translation I see. Anochi El Bet El. The messenger Elohim says he's the El Bet El. Yes. You could say he's the divine presence. Right? What does Jacob say? Achen yesh Adonai b'makom hazeh v'anochi lo yadati. He says, right, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to misquote our patriarch. Yesh Elohim b'makom hazeh. כן, אכן יש אדוני במקום הזה ואנוכי לא ידעתי. Right. So Jacob, when he wakes up from his dream with the ladder, he says that I didn't know. Adonai is here. Yod Hei Vav Hei, spoken Adonai. And later it says Elohim, and later it says El, and later it says El Bet El. And those are all different revelations of God. That's what I think. So, depending on where the messenger is, if it's Elohim, if it's El, right, depending on which sphira he is, let's say, drawing strength and power from, the place where he originates, let's say, depending on that, it would be a different name. In the same way that we have our task and we are called a specific name. And the name has to do with our task, at least in the Hebrew tradition. It's said, and I've mentioned this in the past, one teaching is that once you are dead and buried, and everybody leaves after the service, a messenger, an angel, comes and breaks open the grave, figuratively, metaphorically speaking, I guess, right? Or spiritually speaking, if you will, and takes you out and asks you your name. If you led a righteous life, an honest life, a truthful life, right? If you're Hebrew, a life of Torah and commandments, or not, I'm not a stickler about that, then you would remember your name, because the name bespeaks your task. The name bespeaks your very essence in the Hebrew faith. And most people, they say, do not know their own name. The name that they were with from birth, pretty much, until death. And in death, they forget their name if they did not complete their task. Because something about them is incomplete. Something about their essence was left wanting, lacking, needing. The name that we are given as people bespeaks our essence and our task. And the name that angels get is the same. That's why some end with Resh Vav Nun, some end with Aleph Lamed, depending on if they are the right or the left. The Ramak in Pardes Rimonim brings down many, many, many different names of angels at different halls, at different gates, at different places, different times, different seasons. Like the divine revelation itself, which changes, a name changes every hour in 24 hours. The 24 Hebrew hours, not the 2400 hours. What's called a sha'az manit, a temporary hour, a temporal hour. It's a halachic term. At any rate, it changes as well. Revelation, creation is very dynamic, very fluid. The relationships with the Sfirot are always in motion, because the world doesn't stop. BMXers, exactly, I know, says Robert. I mean, that would mean the Torah was less. Heck, the burning bush was on foreign soil. The Ten Commandments was on foreign soil, so I love HN, but I have to push back on that. Well, yeah, once again, I hope you still understand. Tom McDonald. Oh, it was McDonald. Look at that. How many El is Elohim? Or can two L's be one Elohim? Yes. If you're talking about simply the way that it goes with singular and plural, Eloha, Elohim, and Eloha is singular, Elohim is plural, two and up. So yes. Yedidiah says to Robert, Daniel is not considered a prophet by the rabbis. He is never knowing what's really going on. Plus, Rashi says his prophecy didn't come true. Right, so it's kind of along the same things that I said, where he wasn't put in the book of prophets because it was his writings, it was Ruach HaKodesh. And, like I said, not necessarily does it need to come true. And we mentioned Daniel in connection to people who calculate the end of days, the coming of Messiah, and how the rabbis, our sages, said that was not a good thing to do and people ought not do that. So it's along those lines, I suppose. That's the thing, says Robert. Rabbinically speaking, says it all. I don't believe what the rabbis say. They make it up as they go along to fit. So the rabbis put Daniel in the writings and not included with the prophets. Rabbi, says Yodidiah, he continues, rabbis believe the Torah is in their hands and they can do what they see fit. That is true to some degree. Again, you can't interpret the Torah however you want. There are certain ways in which rabbis, but I'm saying as far as rabbinic law, orthodoxy is concerned, you can't interpret it any way you want. There are certain ways, at least not for the purposes of halacha, right, of ruling, that will apply by and large to everyone, because that's what halacha is. So they do what they see fit within certain parameters, yes. And I don't deny that they were wrong about certain things too. Daniel was spot on with his prophecy and the rabbis know it. Okay, so what? Were they trying to sort of throw shade at him by putting him in the writings? What do you think? I'm actually asking what you think. If you do believe his prophecy was on par, let's say, or the very same, not from a different channel, as other prophets, why do you think, right off the bat, Robert, why do you think Daniel was put with other writings, the scrolls, Ezra, Nehemiah, Divrei Hayamim, Chronicles? So let me know, I'm curious. Of course, he was, says Yodidiah, but they won't admit it or remove it, so they left it on the side. Most Orthodox Jews, says Yodidiao, don't study Daniel today, at least the ones I met. And I must also claim my ignorance here. I never did I've read it. I've definitely read it. But I haven't learned it regularly in a very long time. Maybe since my yeshiva days. I have read it, but I have not learned it, right, with commentary and with references and context and everything there. I haven't learned it, and I doubt that even then I learned the entire thing, though it's a relatively short book. I may have during my yeshiva time learned it with at least one or two commentaries all the way through, though let's say no, let's say I didn't. I certainly learned it at the time. I've read it again since. The Aramaic, I try to read it in the original Aramaic, and I keep needing, obviously, my Aramaic is, especially in that dialect, is far from reasonable or fluent or knowledgeable. But I enjoy reading the Aramaic. See, here's the thing. A lot of it is in Aramaic. The Kasdim speak Aramaic to the king, and so it turns to Aramit, Kasdit, the Aramaic that they were speaking. Right? Malkale al min chaye, the king lives forever, or will live forever. Aramit, it's said in the rabbinic traditions, is a language which the angels cannot speak. They don't understand Aramaic. It's the Hebrew letters, but it's not Hebrew speech. And because of that, the angels, they say, do not understand Aramaic. That's part of why certain prayers in Aramaic remained in the proper Sidur Tfilah, in the book of prayers, the traditional books of prayer with the different nations of the Hebrew people, right? Sfaradi, Ashkenazi. The different origins of post-apocalyptic, post-temple Judaism, people from the East and the West. And they have their own Aramaic prayers in their prayer books, for this reason, partly. And the prayers, those specific prayers, and to some degree all Aramaic, they don't understand it. And so traditionally there are angels which collect prayers, and they basically put an oath on them to rise up. And it's said that they become a crown on with the Most High God on his seat, and the prayers are his crown. Something along those lines. Because in Aramaic, there's like a shortcut where you don't go through the regular chain, where an angel can decide this prayer is not worthy and put it aside until the holiday of atonement, or until a good prayer, a nice prayer is belted out, spontaneous or otherwise, and it sort of takes that fallen prayer, that unworthy prayer along with it, and it goes right up. Okay, let's continue. That's what I thought, said BMXers. That's why Daniel is not even in the Nevi'im section of the Tanakh put together by the rabbis. It must be getting late and I'm tired because I don't remember just now if I have finished that thought. I was speaking about prayer, and I was speaking about the angels, and I was speaking about Aramaic. But now I don't remember precisely what Daniel in Aramaic, right. So the connection there, I'll finish that thought. It felt incomplete to me, is that it's written in Aramaic. And that says something about where it can reach. You know what I'm saying? When you learn it. It says something about the nature of the prayers. Now you could say, no, Yonatan, don't be foolish. It's just a mere technicality. Then, okay, could be, but the sages chose to leave those in Aramaic, and it is also part Hebrew. It switches back and forth. Same with the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, but there's no prophecy there, if I'm not mistaken. There's prayer, great prayer, but no prophecy, if I'm not mistaken, in Ezra and Nehemiah. Or there might be, but not as much as Daniel, for sure. So there might be something there where even though Daniel came from, let's say, Ruach HaKodesh, his prophecies, the Aramaic, maybe it has something to do with that. And with the fact that while it came from a different channel, it can rise up just as high. You know what I'm saying? Maybe. That's just something that, I might be very wrong about that, but seeing as how it's written in Aramaic. Let's continue here. Well, let's say Robert says, hang on. Robert says, wow, should I go say goodbye? It's been an hour and 15 minutes. Should I say, hey, you made it, Sneezer was here, I mentioned your name before. Wow, you know what, I have things from yesterday, I think. Did I even finish them? You know what, just very spontaneously, since I think I'm going to say goodbye soon, in like 10 or 15 minutes maybe, who knows. I'll go back to the chat, last night's chat, because I said I want to continue the chat and the dialogue, and I've been having so much fun here for 70 odd minutes, and now it's time, I think, for a thing or two from yesterday. Okay. Ariel said to Sneezer, let's delve into some names often associated with deities. Many of us are aware that Hebrews spent many years in Babylonian exile, and for this reason as well, because Avraham came from Babylon, we share a lot of names and stories with them, historically. Having said this, in this day and age, it is hard for many to know how much of these historical discoveries are anti-Semitic propaganda. Many names like Ila Allah are shared regionally. And I read that yesterday, but now I'll read what the response to that. Which one? It's a Blood Nose. Wait, no, not Blood Nose. Where else? James Bong said, oh, okay, so Sneezer said, responding to Ariel, he said, well, because God answers to every name, having lived as every one. So any name is also a name of God, according to Sneezer. Mystical Order of Yisrael said, I have a saying, religion is ritualistic spirituality. Yes, that's pretty spot on. It is pretty spot on. Ritualistic spirituality. BMXer says, in my humble opinion. Well, I don't know what was above that, but whatever it was, you said it in your humble opinion. Bloodnose says, it's obvious we're not all of the same spirit, non-believers, but I've learned it's part of our mystery. That's a nice way to put it. Those who don't believe, right, don't need to believe in a soul, a divine spark, or a divine part of any, mystery. Mystery is a nice way to phrase it. Oh, you okay? Maybe some water, man. Yodidiao said, Likud party, as part of their 1977 election manifesto, stated Judea and Samaria will not be handed to any foreign administration between the sea and the Jordan. There will be, between the sea and the Jordan, there will be only Israeli sovereignty. Okay. What are you trying to say? The idea of Israeli sovereignty on what was the biblical promised land, it never came to pass. Let's make that very clear. I don't think there was ever once a time when Israel, because it was disputed and because there are differences of opinion, I mean, maybe in the times of, no, I don't think even in the times of Solomon, I don't think even in the times of King Shlomo, the promised land in its entirety, as it's to be understood, and again, it's a machloket, it's a difference of opinion, it's a controversial thing, but I don't think there was ever a time when all of it was under Israeli rule, right? The rule of the Israelites. So that's first of all. Second of all, the idea of the Jordan having two banks, and this one is ours and that one is ours too, the idea of the river to the sea is not, it's not new in the sense that it has, the river to the sea is just a geographical thing. It's what comes after that that counts. And as far as Israeli sovereignty, I don't know enough about 1977 politics or modern day politics to say what that would mean in the context of a manifesto of the Likud party, who leans very much to the right. So, I have no idea. If you're trying to go for a gotcha, Hebrews, Israelis use the same terminology, even if we say that it is the very same terminology, and even if we say that it predated the Hamas charter, and even if we say, let's pretend that it predated Palestine in the sense of the Palestinians claiming it, let's say that it came first, it still all comes down to what you do, how you behave, practically in the world. And Israel is by no means without faults. But there is nothing wrong with wanting Israeli sovereignty in the land of Israel. I don't see that as something wrong. You could argue over the nature of the sovereignty, and you could say that it would be an absolute, and that would be no good. We can argue over the nature of it, but there's nothing wrong, as I see it, with Israeli sovereignty. So, but again, in the context of the manifesto, I can't tell you. Also, since that's not the case, I want to make it very clear. Since the case is that parts of Yehuda and Shomron, let's say, the different areas there are Shetach B and C, right? Is it B and C? Anyway, places under Palestinian Authority control, a Rashut Palestinit. The idea of, well, look. The West Bank, Judea, Samaria, that whole thing. No, you know what? I don't know enough about 1977 as far as the elections manifesto is concerned, so I can't. But even if we say that they came up with it first, I say look at the proof is in the pudding. And even though Israel has its faults, Israeli sovereignty wouldn't mean killing all of those who say they are Palestinian. And I fear it wouldn't work the other way around. If Israel put down their weapons, there would be no Israel, to quote Golda Meir. Ariel said, Sneezer said, they want Palestine from the river to the sea. I'm saying that's not genocide. It just means Israeli who can't live in their rule would have to leave. That's not genocide. Okay. Look, I don't think that, I guess we'll see when the time comes, right? I'm not going to be making a guess here as to what that means. Practically speaking, it has meant driving the Jews into the sea. That is what it has meant for a very, very long time by everyone around us. And we have a peace with Jordan and a peace with Egypt. Hopefully we can have peace with our other neighbors who surround us, and we can, each of us, get our act together collectively and be able to bring that about. As for genocide, the people of Israel will never be eradicated. People of Israel live. The idea of genocide has been, I don't think they've ever had the power, let's say, the strength to do so, and when they did, it was called a war between armies. But I have little doubt, I have little doubt that it would have turned very quickly into a genocide had Israel lost a single war in its existence as a state, as a modern-day state. We saw that when we lost previous wars, we were kicked out. Kicked out, because we deserve to be kicked out because of the way we behaved. It all comes down to how we behave. What's Likud? So the political party at the time. When was the Hamas charter created? Before or after? I think it was created in the late 70s or early 80s. 81 sounds familiar, but I might be mistaken. And it was revised later on. There's a revised version. I'm not sure from when. More recent, I think. Maybe the 90s. That's actually less recent, depending on when it was. Yodidiah says to Sneezer, the Israeli Likud party was first to say from the river to the sea, from the sea to the river, only Israel. Ariel said, Judaism in theory still refers to certain regional deities as names of God, which is kind of justified by the concept that God is one. Personally, I am unsure that these names should be translated. Good call, because it's Hebrew with a certain punctuation. And no, I'm unsure that the name should be translated either, because it loses something in translation, to be a cliche. Ariel Marshall says, it's translated to God, but I am hardly the most Jew in regards to... Oh, I see, so he said something afterwards. I am unsure that these names should be translated to God. Yes, I agree, because it kind of misses the mark. God is an all-encompassing secular name, and each of the names that we know in Hebrew manifests a certain kind of relationship between the Sfirot, and as such, it brings a certain thing into creation, which can change the meaning and the practical implications of what the verse means in the here and now. So I grew up with Hebrew, Todah Liyah, thank God, but I don't know what I would do, what translation I would follow, how I would be able to discern. It's very lucky, and I'm very thankful that I know Hebrew. Sneezer says, I think faith is above all the commandments. You can't love God, Jesus' first commandment, without faith. Well, I suppose that's true, but I suppose that's true to some degree, but you can love God in the sense of carrying out the word and the commandments of the Most High God and the Torah without believing without believing in it. I can see that. It's not a contradiction to me. Likud is the Bibi Netanyahu government, right? It still is, correct. Bibi says no Palestinian state. USA says yes, of course a Palestinian state. Says, you said Yodidiao. Okay. You know my opinion. I just want peace to come to this land, and hopefully it will be without us wiping each other out. That's also how peace can be obtained. Sneezer said, "Yup, ego is the great blinder, deceiver. No Palestine state," says Robert. Sneezer says, "Makes you think things you want will benefit others, for example. The ego." James Bong said, "I agree, Jonathan, there are a lot of formalities in religion more based on ostentatious means to separate and distinguish one from another." Yeah, it's also for practical things and not just distinguishing, but yeah, to be separate. I guess I was talking at the time of being separate. Bong, yes, they are fundamentally, but wait, what? At least mostly ego? Wait, James Bong, I agree. Okay, so yes, they fundamentally agree on nearly everything, if not everything. BMXer said to Yodidiao, okay, but what does it mean? Is it a Hebrew word or an acronym? Traditional and customs, said James Bong. Yodidiao said, if there's no Palestinian state, there can't be an Israeli state. That was the rule of the UN partition. Okay. I would think, you know what? I don't know enough about the partition plan after the establishment of the State of Israel. I don't know how that happened in the sense of partition plan preceded it, what, a year? At the end of the War of Independence, I don't know what the UN said then. I'm not sure if I've ever watched what happened afterwards. Maybe I'm just missing my, history and social sciences. Yodidiao said, USA is a democracy. Our goal is to promote democracy like the USA. Israel is not a democracy, nothing close. Well, it depends how you mean, but there is, like I said, a democratic element to Israel. There's a theocratic element to Israel. There might be, some people might say there is a dicto, right? A dictatorship element to it. Yodidiao says, if it was a democracy, the vote would rule against the rabbis. Well, the thing is that the vote is the people's choice, and the Haredim, the ultra-Orthodox, for example, and many of the Datiim Leumiyim and Datiim and Haredim Leumiyim, many of the different religion and the different religious groups go out and vote en masse. And let's say the secular, as does the Arab population, and the, let's say, secular crowd doesn't vote with as unified a voice. And so the Haredim, right, the ultra-Orthodox and their political parties, more often than not, I think, are in the coalition, calling the shots, putting pressure to have things go their way. Practically speaking, the majority of the state of Israel is secular. And there are certain things where religion will not have a say as long as it's a democratic state. Right? Because Israel took certain elements from the Hebrew court system, and they took certain elements from the British common law, most of it, if I'm not mistaken, and different things from different traditions, and they gave certain tasks and abilities, powers to the religious courts, not just Jewish, not just rabbinic ones. So it's nothing close. I agree. Probably it's nothing close to what the States has, but it's something close. BMXer says to Robert, strangely enough, I agree. There was and should be no Palestine. They should go back to Arabia if their family have no connection to the land before 1948. Yudhya says to Robert, how can you be for modern Israel and also be against the rabbis? The rabbis control Israel. Robert replies, what was the of Abraham grandfather? Terach. Terach was his father, and he was the son of... Who was it? Was it Metushelach or Lemech? Not Lemech. Metushelach or Lemech sounds right. Hang on a sec, let's see. Oops, forgive me. I want to get the Hebrew here. Okay, Metushael had Lemech. Okay, Pseudo, that's that. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Come on. That's not what I'm looking for. Hang on a second. Ve'letolot Terach. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm wasting time here. I'm not finding the verse I'm interested in. Okay, Nachor. That's who. So Terach was the son. I should have remembered that. Obviously, Terach was the son of Nachor. Wow, it's been an hour and a half. I'm going to stop. I think I'm going to stop now. Yes, I will. There's more to yesterday's chat, and there's a lot more to today's chat. What a blessing. What a blessing. Wow. Okay, whoa. Okay, so hopefully I will get to this tomorrow. And I'll get to yesterday's chat. I'll get to today's chat. Es Yofi, Shalom, or Yafe. Shalom, hello to you. Shalom, shalom. We will meet again. Until then, I will say thank you. I appreciate every like, every sub, every people who blip in and out, people who are silent and watching, people who are in the chat bringing their wisdom. I love learning from each and every one of you. It's so much fun to engage with you, to start another week like this. I hope and pray we will be able to bring things down to creation from this intellectual mishmash, from this pixelated session we had here. I hope and pray we will be able to all learn something, pick up something from somebody else. And hopefully tomorrow night, maybe 9, maybe 10, I don't know. Maybe I'll start doing it at 9. I think that's going to be the case. We'll see. Until then, God bless. Good night from Jerusalem. Peace, love, positive vibrations. Yeah, willing. See ya.